few businesses around the Cayman Islands. Been here forever. He is Caymanian, so he has been here forever. But yeah, he owns Don Foster's Dive. Does anyone know that from? No, it's a dive center. I used to work for him actually, and a bunch of other restaurants and stuff. Very nice guy. Likes a stiff drink. But he's got a couple of different dive sites named after him, and this one is Cumbers Caves because there's a bunch of caves, especially on the main outer wall. One of them we're going to take you through. If you want to go off on adventure, some of the other ones, you're welcome to. I have a little saying: if you see blue, go through. If you see black, turn back. Because obviously some of them get a little bit tight towards the end. So. But one of them is big enough for all of us, and it's a really, really beautiful way to come back up off the wall into the shallows. So I think what Louise is going to do, she's going to hop in the water. If you want to hang around underneath the boat, you have this mini wall, the rubble, and some big barrel sponges and stuff to check out. And then just hang around in the sand, obviously looking out for the usual critters we've been seeing this last week. The southern stingray we get quite a lot, don't we? I used to work in Grand Cayman. I used to work for Stingray City. Has anybody been there before? Yeah, it's a bit of it's a cool day out, isn't it? It's a strange one. So I don't know, you guys might already know that the larger southern stingrays are all female. Do you guys know that? And the males are very small. The males only get about this big. But if you're wondering, it's like, oh, is that a small female or is that a fully grown male? There is a way of telling.
That's probably the larger body fat with the same ditch.
So if you imagine this being the stingray from above, so you have the stingray's tail, and then the males, they have what's called claspers, okay, similar to sharks, and the claspers, they have two claspers, one either side of the tail. So that's his reproductive organ. So twice the man that I'll ever be. But if you're wondering whether it's a male or a female, you can get nice and close, and they're usually tucked underneath a little bit. Same as sharks. You see a shark swimming by. If you look underneath, they have the two claspers, and they're the male. But keep an eye out for those guys. Here as well, you get a lot of algae patches at Cumbers Caves. A lot of algae patches, looking out for those pipe horses. Louise found last time, which she wanted me to mention, some of the head shield slugs we've talked about, but the leech aglia are very colourful head shield slugs, so they're different type. So you see them quite often in the sandy area up in the shallows. And in the algae patches, look throughout the algae patches for your pipe horses, but also you get alesias. I've never seen the painted alesia, but you get all the sort of green alesias, and they're basically like a nudibranch that kind of crawl around, little slugs in the sand. So some of them get quite big. But yeah, something to look out for. And then you're going to make your way across to the main wall, and then it kind of shallows up from about 50 to 45 as you go over it. Again, there are some swim-throughs here if you want to take an adventure, but Louise is going to come over the top. You'll see one of these hydrophones that I mentioned. Do you remember the hydrophone on Donna's, is it? Donna's Delight? Yeah.
Donna's, yeah.
So there's a hydrophone there, and we're going to take a right-hand turn. So we're going to go in and out, and you don't have to travel too far, really, before you get to this beautiful cavern and this cave that you can kind of come up. And it brings you from around probably about 75 feet or so, brings you up back into the shallows on that side. So obviously maximum depth 110 feet, so it's plenty good enough for us. And the thing's huge, it's really, really nice. Lots of light, very beautiful. And then it kind of forks off, so you can either go to the left or the right. If one side is a bit kicked up with sand, maybe choose the other side, but they both kind of come round, so there's no problem. And then it'll bring you back into the sandy area at around about 50, 45 feet. And then what we tend to do, we just kind of cruise across towards the mini wall again. Sometimes, it hasn't been for a while though, the upside down jellies in the sand.
It's been a while.
Yeah, you occasionally in this
I
area.
think there must be a season.
Yeah, it could be actually, yeah. But generally look out in the mini wall just for lobsters. Sometimes you can see in the